32nd board. These are the hot topics headed into RedBud. Perfect 10. I got excited. I thought we were going to talk about Justin Brayton here. I guess there's no real relevancy to slot him in. He did get a podium at RedBud once, JT. The 10 is for the 10 manufacturers that will have lined up in an SMX race this year once Ducati there with Caroli jumps in. That is like double where it was not that long ago.
Yes, it's incredible. And we're old enough to remember when it was just the big four. It was the big four Japanese manufacturers. Then KTM entered the fray and off we went. And now we sit at 10. It's a pretty unbelievable thing. And I think it just goes to prove that everybody wants to be a part of the motocross scene. These brands that have historically been on road are now off road, and they're coming in a big way. That Antonio Cairoli presence looms large. It's going to be fun to watch him debut that motorcycle in Michigan.
And of course, shout out to Triumph and Beta who jumped in not that long ago, but now they seem like old brands at it compared to Ducati. So that will be really fun. And nothing is more fun than doing it at RedBud. It is as I say, you hear it every weekend when the show begins, a scene that can rival anything in motorsports. That podium, that crowd, they get crazier as the weekend goes on until eventually, I don't even know if they know what's happening specifically in the race by the second motos, but boy, do they have fun. And this is the perfect date. I've heard, JT, when RedBud falls on the actual 4th, the crowd is a little bit smaller because some people are like, that's the day to hang out at home with family. But it's just past the 4th. This is going to be massive this year.
It's going to be amazing. And I have the privilege of being down on the podium for that anarchy that you talk about. And there's so much excitement. And we've seen historical things happen. It was really the emergence of Hayden Deegan a few years ago at this very RedBud race. AP has ridden very well here, and we know how much he leans into America's birthday. So if you've never been, make this your first time. There's truly nothing like RedBud, whether it was Motocross of Nations or whether it's the yearly Pro Motocross race. It's a scene that I would echo your sentiment that can rival anything in motorsports globally.
Yeah, that podium is nuts, just the race in general. And the track has made a name for itself just as a racetrack. Even if you take the fans out, give us a little tour and talk about the evolution of RedBud through the decades.
Yeah, so you go back to the 1980s and 90s, RedBud was a clay-based, very hard-packed racetrack. You know, when they would water it for the second motos, there would be standing water on the racetrack because it was so hard. Well, fast forward now to 2025, and it's, I would say, more sand-based than anything. Lots of loam, very soft, but the riders love it. They love the layout, they love the fast, sweeping sections. There are big, safe jumps that riders you can see them having fun.
Got to give a shout-out to Josh Toth. We mentioned this before the race, so he wins the Snowshoe GNCC, which bills itself as America's toughest race. This is ski resort, riding through the mountains, tree roots, mud, rocks, boulders. Then he races the Southwick National because he's local to the track, JT, qualifies in the 450 class. I think got 25th overall, so that means he beat 15 guys, so that's impressive. Then drives through the night and wins the National Enduro in Ohio the next day. That's nuts.
It is nuts. And the thing I took away from all of this is that the things he's racing, this snowshoe race, these GNCC races, it makes Southwick look easy. And that sounds crazy because if you saw how bad some of those guys are laboring on Saturday at Southwick, those guys are racing for 3 hours across boulders, mud, water, mountainsides. I have so much respect for what those guys do because I know I could have never done it. I raced Pro Motocross for 16 years, and I could never, ever do what those guys are doing. So my hat's off to Josh Toth for not only racing one, but racing back-to-back days. What an Iron Man that guy is.
Yeah, what did you normally feel like Sunday morning after Southwick National?
Pretty rough. Back soreness, muscle fatigue. Your legs are much more sore because you're standing around the entire track. So to have to go race a tougher race on Sunday after doing that and probably driving all night. I don't know how he did it. I don't know what his results were in Ohio, but
he won.
He won again. Oh my.
Yes.
Yeah. Better him than me. Josh Toth for president in 28.
Let's switch to the 250 class here. We teased this at the top of the show with this, what's going to happen when Deegan moves to the 450 class situation. That's a 450 thing. But that would also mean that Deegan would not be racing 250 motocross, we presume, next summer. You mentioned, JT, that's like a power vacuum in that class. Maybe not too early to start thinking about that.
Yeah, I think all these guys, because let's face it, this championship is slipping away really quickly. You know, Hayden Deegan, barring injury, barring catastrophe, he really feels like he's the class of this field, and the scoreboard says the same. But there is going to be a huge hole here. We don't know what Tom Vial will do for Pro Motocross, whether he's 250 or 450 next summer. But Levi Kitchen, the injured Chance Hymas, Joe Shimoda will still be down. Like, all these guys are looking at next season. I would say even Jason Weigandt's thinking Ty Masterpool, but all these guys are thinking about, I need to be champ next year. And yes, that was what Chance Hymas was saying this year, but the opportunity in 2026 is simply going to be more opportunistic than 2025 because Deegan has smashed these guys. Kudos to him, but there will be a new champ in 26 and they all have to be thinking about it.
You're noticing kind of the usual suspects starting to round in. Julian Beaumer started really well. He's fallen off. Southwick is really tough for him. Garrett Marchbanks has been good all year. Southwick wasn't quite as good. Yeah, my guy Masterpool has not even been near the podium as of late. I want to shout out Michael Moseman, who probably should have had the podium at Southwick, but his bike started overheating. Went from second to fourth on like the last lap of the first moto. That cost him. But really beyond that, look who it is. It's been Kitchen, it's been Vial, it's been Shimoda, and Hymas with that win. JT, it's starting to become the usual guys.
And this is the way racing works. The best guys get the best results. Typically, if you give them enough time and a big enough sample size, the best guys rise to the top. That is the story of our sport, and we're getting there. Guys came in hot, came in prepared, thinking this was going to be their summer. Now they're starting to struggle a little bit. So it's not shocking to me that the guys, you know, it's basically we are who we thought they were. You know, it's that same old story. Those guys are finding ways to get to the front again. And as the summer wears on and guys start to get more and more fatigued and it's the dog days of summer, I think you're just going to see more of that. The best guys will stay near the front.
Go to the 450s. Southwick really leads into RedBud with a couple of questions here. Eli Tomac, who we knew would be good on that track and said on Friday it's his favorite track, couldn't keep the pressure on Jet like he has in other races this year. And then Hunter Lawrence gets the better of him straight up in the second moto. So I'm saying on another podcast that we do that we are underselling the incredible leaps that Hunter Lawrence has made through the years to go from a good prospect but not a phenom to this level. But then I forget, it's not like the Lawrences don't know how to ride sand. So maybe Tomac can flip it on him at RedBud. I don't know where to go with this right now.
I think it depends on which side of the fence you're standing on. You know, if you are an Eli Tomac fan, you have to feel a little disappointed after the weekend. Everybody was looking at it as an opportunity to beat Jet, and he really wasn't close. And not only that, he wasn't able to beat Jet's brother. So that's a pretty big negative as far as the championship goes. Forget about the points, just as far as sentiment and momentum, that was a pretty big blow. But if you're on the Lawrence side of things, you're like, yeah, Hunter has really risen forward. Like, he's continually gotten better. And that's what I think about. This is a guy that was like, he was 8th in points when he left Europe. He wasn't a shoe-in. He wasn't a sure thing. Geico Honda took a chance on him. And some would say they were even more excited about his brother than they were him. And his brother was 15 years old. So Hunter's story is one that I think doesn't get enough play, because from where he was in 2020 on the verge of retiring with a shoulder injury to now at the forefront of the 450 class, again, if he didn't have this brother that seems to be from another world, I think we would be talking about it a lot more.
Okay, and then one more Southwick story. Does it carry over to RedBud? Jorge Prado. Okay, didn't get on the podium, but that was the first time we saw him show some speed, show some signs of anything. He said, no, the bike's not there. It's just sand. I'm good in sand. Is it something? Is it something that he can be in the podium mix at RedBud, or is that just a Southwick thing?
Well, there's understanding what's happening with Jorge Prado, and then there's solving nuclear cold fission. Like, those are the two things that are pressing on the world right now as far as how do we solve these things, because I want to say that came out of nowhere. Like, there was a lot of talk about sand will be a good thing for him. He will be a lot better, and maybe that's true, or maybe he's kind of figuring things out. He's still returning from injury, you know, the same kind of timeline, just because he's further behind than Jet has been. It's injury has still been a big factor here. We're going to learn a lot at RedBud. And I think the scariest part of all of this is if we watch him and he reverts back to where he was. That would be such a devastating blow to his confidence. And let's hope, because he brings a lot to the series, the international flair, of course, all the, everybody watching the Spanish version of the SMX broadcast, they're loving this kind of return to greatness for Prado. But I cannot stress this enough. He has to show follow through at RedBud for his own sake. It has to be good. He needs to qualify well. He needs to get good starts. He doesn't have to win. I don't think he can win right now, but just be in the fight. Just show the same grit and the fight and the capability to run the pace. And I think the rest will take care of itself. But this weekend is so critically important in the story of Jorge Prado's 2025 championship.
And it's only going to be harder because finally, the 2024 champion of 450 Pro Motocross will return to the track this weekend. Chase Sexton. This is as wild cards get. We don't even really know what was hurt. So we don't even know, is he really coming back from injury? Did he just need a mental reset? So it's really hard to gauge. Normally, if a guy's coming back from a gnarly injury, like you just said, you know it's going to take a while. He might have been healthy the whole time. And then we know the ceiling on Chase Sexton. He might already be ahead of the Hunter Lawrence, Jorge Prado, Eli Tomac group. I'm sure in his mind, he's ahead of Jet Lawrence. I don't know what to do with this.
He's going to be good. Like, it's Chase Sexton. He's the defending champion. He's the Motocross of Nations champion at this same racetrack. It's a home race on the 4th of July. He's going to be good.
Okay, we know that it is July 4th weekend, America's birthday celebration, but there will be some Americans racing overseas this weekend. It's the FIM Junior World Championship. I'm going to read off the names of those racing for Team USA this weekend. On 65s, you got Racing Kyler. That's a female. We mentioned her. First time ever Team USA has had a girl on the team. Good luck to her. Cannon Zabanik and Levi Geis. 85 riders are Jackson Vick, Gage Brown, Easton Graves, Maddox Temmerman, the cousin of Enzo Temmerman, who we've seen in SMX Next, and also Colt Martin. And then the 125s will have Braxton Metz, Brady Olson, and Tristan Pewitt. A shout out to Jeff Cernick, who's the man that puts this together, someone you know pretty well, JT. The racing in France. This is a huge experience because the list of those who have succeeded over at this race before, it's who's who.
Yeah, and a lot of those names, I'm sure most of you watching at home don't know those names. And what I would tell you is go on your Google machine and look up the Wikipedia page for this particular event, the FIM Junior, GP Championship, and you're going to see historical names that have won this event individually in their classes that will blow you away. Eli Tomac, Ken Roxon, Tim Geiser, Jet Lawrence, like everybody and anybody who has made a name over the last 15 or 20 years in professional racing was at this race or won. Zach Osborne, take your pick. They're there. So write the names down that are participating this year because you're probably going to need them in 10 years or so. That's how much this event means. And I think the coolest part of all this is the experience gained. This is something you can't buy. Being on this stage with this much pressure in a foreign country, they're learning things that they will be able to apply for the rest of their racing career, if not their life.
Now, back in America, there will be some young riders competing at RedBud. That's the first Eastern-ish SMX Next Motocross race of the year, or what is known as the Scouting Moto Combine. Now, the dominant winner of the first one at Hangtown, Caden Manier, he's out with a thumb injury. But there's a lot of the familiar names in this. Vincent Way really battled him at Hangtown before a couple of crashes. Got Liam Aloff, Landon Gordon, Landon Gibson. So a lot of, I guess, semi-familiar names to the fans at this point. It's kind of the point of the SMX Next program that you start to get familiar with these kids early.
Yeah, there's a lot of development going on. Vincent Way, I thought he made a really good first impression. It was also the first time that we saw Carson Wood on his Monster Yamaha Star Racing machine. But these kids are the future superstars. Make no mistake about it. And I kind of want to see where some of these guys that were so good in Supercross, can they kind of match what they need to do? Like Landon Gordon, I really want to see if he can kind of take that step in Pro Motocross because he was so fantastic in the Supercross version of this SMX Next campaign. But yeah, Enzo Timmerman, what did he learn taking his shot at Pro Motocross, and how can he apply that to the SMX Next format? And against, let's face it, lesser competition, can he take that step after knowing what he's up against? But it's been a great run so far. I think it's some of the most entertaining racing we see all year long, and this should be no different. And the last note I want to make on this, I think 3 years ago, this was Hayden Deegan's breakout party. This was the first time they were like, oh boy, we have something here. So I'll be looking to see if anybody takes that step here at RedBud.
Cool. All right. One other thing, we've been mentioning the patriotic shirt. If you are an American going to RedBud to celebrate America's birthday, you'd probably want this St. Jude shirt, the Love Moto Stop Cancer Patriotic Edition is what I'm calling it. And as always, you can get it with a donation to St. Jude, helping fund child cancer research and care. Just text the word SUPER to 785-833. Then sign up for the monthly donation, and they'll send you that patriotic Love Moto Stop Cancer shirt. And then one other thing to note is the SMX playoff schedule. Now, this is key. There's the championship, and then the championship. It continues to tighten. Cooper Webb's still the number 1 seed. Justin Cooper keeps gaining. He didn't gain as much, though, this weekend as he had been. And Webb actually beat Aaron Plessinger in the second moto. That's thing number 1. Another thing I noticed, JT, Jet Lawrence is now within about 50 points of Chase Sexton in SMX seeding. So Sexton, good time to come back, eh?
It's a good time to come back, but it doesn't guarantee anything. If he's not on his game, if Jet continues to improve, 50 points isn't out of the question. Talk about we're halfway through the series. I don't think he will. If Sexton comes back on form, I don't think he will. But it's not impossible for Jet to surpass Chase Sexton in this championship. But your first point about Webb and Cooper, Justin Cooper, there's too many Coopers here, for one. But those two and AP, that battle is going to be really fun to watch. And to your point, yes, that was a big deal for Cooper Webb. He doesn't have to beat these guys every weekend, but if he can keep the points to a minimal loss and find a way to scratch some back like he did in the second moto, that will be the difference when we get to Budds Creek.
Yep, and then Budds Creek will launch into the playoffs. We'll give you the schedule here. As most folks know, it's going to start again at ZMAX Dragway, part of the Charlotte Motor Speedway complex. 3rd year in a row for that with the hybrid track there. Then going to race the next weekend, middle of September, the Dome in St. Louis, but it'll have, again, a hybrid track. It'll be different than when we race Supercross there. And awesome to have the World Championship handed out in Las Vegas again. That at the hybrid track, the setup is a little similar to Charlotte, but what I liked about it was the track went behind the grandstands, and I've never seen that scenario where fans of the grandstands, JT, the riders were going in front of them, then they would turn their backs, and they'd be coming back behind them. And it's, I guess the main thing is how different these are compared to everything we see in the 28 regular season rounds.
They are very different. And honestly, the closest thing I can think of is when I've gotten the whole shot at Pro Motocross racers, then riders were in front of me, behind me, on top of me, everywhere, blowing me off the racetrack. I think in 2004 at Hangtown, I whole shot it, ended up 17th in that moto. So that's the type of barrage that I felt and what everybody that attends Las Vegas is going to feel. So get your tickets, camp at the first and the last one. It's going to be a great time. We're on year 3 of this thing, and they have been home runs thus far.
All right, this is it. We talk all year. I think even in January, you'll hear someone at Anaheim 1 yell out, RedBud. It's just different than any other race. Really excited to go back. It's the normal schedule, everyone. This race operates on East Coast time. So race day live, 1 hour of qualifying coverage. You can watch from 10 to 11 Eastern on Saturday morning. That's July 5th. The motos start at 1 o'clock Eastern. As always, you can watch everything on Peacock. If you're outside the United States, maybe you're an Italian and you want to watch Antonio Caroli on a Ducati, you can do that with the SMX Video Pass. That's supermotocross.tv, and it's 50% off because more than halfway through the championship. But also, JT, a NBC window at 3 o'clock. That'll be 450 Moto 2. So again, tell your friends to jump in and see what the likes of Jet Lawrence, Eli Tomac, Chase Sexton now, maybe Jorge Prado will be up there. See what the sport's all about.
Hi folks, Lee Diffie from NBC Sports here. If you truly enjoyed what you just watched, you can get more news, interviews, and highlights by subscribing to the Motorsports on NBC YouTube page. You can get it all, so go for it.